So I thought, okay, let's address that. And in the first instance, an awful lot depends on what kind of idea it is. Because my inspiration for a novel can either start off with a character, as in Searching for Summer. I started off with Mirabelle. As I was thinking about writing, I kept thinking about this character who I was growing in my mind. You know, I could see her, and I thought, oh, she's an interesting character. What kind of story could I give her? And I thought, what kind of person is she? And the more I got to know her in my head and think about her, I realised that she'd make a great sort of unofficial and not really planning to be a detective, you know, somebody rather reluctant. So I thought, okay, the reluctant detective. And of course, that, as you know, became the Reluctant Detective series, of which we have Searching for Summer, Traces of Red and Rusty Gold. They were the three in that series. And so I started, having started with Mirabelle, it wasn't so much an idea as a feeling for this character that was the very first genesis of it. But then when I got the idea that she would be a reluctant detective, I thought, okay, why reluctant and why a detective? And I thought, well, she needs to, in the first instance, want to find something out that's for her. You know, and then when it grows, she reluctantly does it for other people. So that was where I got this idea of searching for her daughter. So when I've got that idea, I thought, right, that's me got a character, which I liked and thought was a good character and could sustain the 3 books of a series, which I didn't know at the first that it was going to be 3 books of a series, but I did have in mind there would be a series. But so I had a good character. I'd got my idea, I'd brainstormed a bit and come up with this idea of a reluctant detective, and then I came up with the idea of it being that she was looking for her daughter, and that she would actually end up doing this for other people reluctantly and start a detective agency of sorts, a missing persons agency really. So that was the sort of growth of the idea. So then what you have to do is you think, well, first thing, when does her daughter go missing? How old is she? How does she go missing? And in my mind, I needed to know, was it that she'd been taken, or was it deliberate, that she went? I had to know in my mind the circumstances. Not that I would declare that at the outset, because then there's no story. I wanted to have in my mind what had happened to Summer, Mirabelle's daughter, so that I could then weave towards it in the story. And I thought, now there has to be hiccups on the way. If I was trying to imagine just how awful it would be for a child to go missing. And I thought, what would happen? How would you go about looking for your child? And what would be some of the things you would encounter along the way? What would be some of the false alarms, some of the hopes, false hopes, real hopes, whatever, sightings, all of these things. So I thought about these things, and I kind of got a kind of run of what kind of order some of these things would maybe occur in. And then of course the story, because I do tend to write character-based novels, and the story does centre around Mirabelle, the main character. So I thought, well, I have to get right under her skin and think about how all of this is going to affect her. Now, for my money, I reckoned she would be pretty devastated, pretty depressed. She would go up and down. There would be times where she thought she was coping and other times where she would go into a slump. And I thought, now, I'm going to have to portray that as honestly as I can, as fully as I can. I don't want to sell her short. Now that meant that when I first wrote the book, there was a lot of Mirabelle's internal suffering, and you may think there still is a lot, but believe me, I pared it down because I didn't want it to be a book that was all misery. But I reckon, if it was you or me, I reckon our misery would go on until we found our child. I don't think it would ever let up. But I thought, in order for the book to be entertaining and not depressing, there needs to be other things in it. And it needs to go up and down a bit. It needs to have light and shade. She can't just be in despair all the time. So that was how I developed the book. And then I wanted there to be other events in it in the course of the series, finding other people's children, finding other people, and then the people who started to come and ask her for help. So that was how I developed the initial idea into a series of 3 books. Now, that was different for some of my other books. For instance, Here at the Gate started with an idea that really I was wanting to write a novel in 2013 for National Novel Writing Month. I've spoken of that before, I'm sure, and I hadn't an idea. So I was racking my brains for wee snippets I knew had caught my attention different times that were stored away. Now, do you see just right above my head, there's some coloured files there. Well, in one of those files, one of the purple ones, I think, I actually had lots of snippets of, I still have, lots of little snippets of things that I've read or thought or heard, and I've just jotted them down because I've thought there's a story there. There is a story in that. But at the time I've maybe been too busy writing something else, and I've thought, just so I don't forget it, it's in there. Now, that in 2013, when I was all set to go through that file, I'm fairly sure it's a purple one, it might be one of the red ones, I think it's a purple one. Anyway, when I was ready and could have done with going through that, it was not accessible to me because I can't remember, I think it was my bedroom was being decorated, something like that, and lots of things were in here, lots of bits of furniture and all sorts of things, and I couldn't access that file. So I had to go rooting through what's in that file, what can I remember that's in it. And I remembered a little snippet that was my stepfather told me when I was a little girl, a story about his sister, and it was set a very long time ago, obviously, but it happened a long time before, and it stuck in my mind that I could make something of this idea, something of this little nugget. It was very small. What little he told me was just a passing thing. Oh, my sister did, you know, and a few sentences. But I'd written them down in the file, and that's what I went through in my mind. What's in that file? What's in that file? And that's the one that popped up. And I thought, okay. So I had this idea of something that a little girl did a long time ago. And she was young, and she was lonely, and one thing and another. And she did a rather terrible thing. And then I thought, okay, so that's really the end of the story. Because if I tell that right at the beginning, then where's the story? So I thought, okay, that's what I need to get to. That's what my story needs to travel to. So I thought, well, where will it begin? So this happened a long time ago when the character was a little girl. So now the character's all grown up and obviously doesn't want anybody to know about that event that happened all those years ago. So I thought, okay, how could it be kept secret for a long time? And what would it have led to? Because there were consequences for what she did. And I thought, well, what would be the consequences? What would they have led to? And I worked kind of backwards in my mind first of all, and then jotting down notes. I thought, right, what's my starting point? And I thought, right, I need a modern day starting point, something that's happening now that's going to expose this character's past. And she's very carefully kept her past hidden. So I thought, okay, perhaps she's got a grown-up family and her daughter is tracing her family tree. because that's a fairly normal thing to do. That's something a lot of people do nowadays, particularly because you can do most of it online. And I thought, hey, maybe that's how it could start. Now, of course, my main character isn't going to want her past exposed. So this is panic for her. So this is the inciting incident for the book, if you like. You know, when her daughter starts to do this, all kinds of panic bells go off in the main character's head. She thinks, no, no, this can't happen. And so she starts her story of, she tries to remember, I suppose, what she did and how, because some of it she'd buried because it was very traumatic. So as we go through her trying to stop her story being found out by other people, we're also going through her trying to recall it. So as readers, we are finding it out long before her family do. We are beginning to find it out. And of course at the climax, it's when it's discovered. So that's how that idea got fleshed out. It was completely different because I didn't start with any characters in my mind. So I had to then think, what would this character be like now? If she had gone through this traumatic event and she'd kept it hidden all these years, what would she have? Hang-ups, fears? You know, how would it have affected her? So I worked all that out, and then that comes in, gets shown during the story. And also, I didn't start with a location, so I set it in the central belt of Scotland, basically, and because I wanted her not to be living where it had all happened, but not too far away. So the central belt of Scotland. So that's how I fleshed that out into Here at the Gate, which is a book that I'm proud of all my books, and I love all my books, and I don't think I have a favourite so much as they each hold a different place in my heart. And Here at the Gate, it has a very special place because it was my first ever NaNoWriMo attempt, and the first time I'd ever written from nowhere. I had written a whole first draft in a month, that was a first for me, and oh, it was so thrilling and so exciting, and I enjoyed it so much. I've done it every year since, but that one holds a very special place because of that, and I think it's a jolly good story as well. So that was Here at the Gate. The novel that I'm